here today with a good friend of mine and somebody whose family goes way, way back in Nassau County in Fernandina. I'm here with Harry Mills. Harry, thank you for doing this with me.
Glad to be here.
Oh, good. I'm glad to get you out of the house and get you here and, get you out of Lynette's hair. And
glad
she paid me $10.
Glad to share.
Yeah, that's right. Harry, exactly how far back does your family go here in Nassau County? Is it? I know it's.
My grandfather lived in Evergreen, which was other side of Italia, if you know where Italia was.
Yep.
And he raised cattle, and they would bring the cattle into the island, and they would feed them during the winter months, and then they would run them back to Yulee or Callahan in the old days.
Yeah. Folks, Italia was over on the west side of the county and close to the St. Mary's River.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. US 1 up in that area going towards Georgia.
It's really between Hilliard and 121 or in that area.
But as far as years, I know it's over 150 years, if not more, and I would imagine it's more.
And my grandmother on my mother's side brought the first doctor to Kings Ferry, and she lived in Kings Ferry, and he was buried there. He was a Dr. Elijah Wright. Wow. So I have family in Kings Ferry. My father came from Folkestone, and my mother came from Callahan, and between the triangle there, we kind of knew everybody.
Yeah. Harry and I talk a lot about, the old days and people that we knew growing up with, but Harry's uncle was the military selective service board or draft board. That's right.
At the post office.
Upstairs at the post office, and he put many of us in the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, the Marines, you name it, and it was Rudolph Mills, and I know I went to see him in 1964, and I told him I wanted to join the Army, and 3 days later I was in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. So that man could make your dreams come true.
He sent a lot of them off, I'll tell you, during that time period.
He did. Harry, growing up here in Fernandina, tell me what some of your fondest memories are of, just remembering back as a child growing up here and as a teenager. What are some of the things that just really stick out in your mind?
I think Danny put it last time. You talked to Danny Moore, and every place you went, it was personal. You knew there was a mom and pop store. They knew you, and there's a lot of trust. And I think Danny put it correctly. We didn't have any fear. There were no boundaries. We always trusted everybody. But every mom and pop store that you mentioned, anything, we knew those people, and we cared about them, and they cared about us. And I'd say we were real personal with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's so true. I'm thinking back when I was growing up here, and maybe you can help me with this or correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I'll bet you there wasn't 3,500 people on this whole island. Maybe I'm wrong, but and if I am, it's probably because the number's too big. But there really wasn't much here. I mean, we didn't have much here. I mean, it was just a very small, tight-knit community. Tight-knit, I guess, is a good word for it. And you're right. We knew everybody. Everybody knew us.
When you wanted a car, you'd go see Mr. Ferrer, and Mr. Ferrer would say, go see Mr. Woodward, and you'd come back with a car, and then you would sign the papers.
Yeah. I'll never forget when 1965, Dale and I wanted to buy a car, and I called Mr. Ferreira and I told him, and he said, and at that time they had what they call counter checks at the bank. I mean, it didn't have a number on it. It was just had the name of the bank. He said, go ahead and write them a check. And it was like Thursday or Friday. He said, come in Monday and we'll take care of the paperwork. So that's basically how we did business back then. And I did. I bought the car and I went in on Monday and we did the paperwork. And but you wouldn't do that today.
What about Mr. Paczynski you were talking about?
Oh, my goodness, Mr. Paczynski. Mr. Paczynski was the sports football coach at a junior high, and our junior high was right up here on Atlantic Avenue across from Central Park. And, now, Harry, you worked at the filling station.
Mr.
Beckett's station on 8th Street.
That's correct.
Across the street from your grandmother's house. And I, of course, I worked at the boatyard with my dad. And Mr. Paczynski was always on me about playing football. So one day he talked me into staying after school and dressing out. And so I did. And I'm out on the field, that same field that's there today. And it wasn't long. I saw my dad's truck, and I ran over to the truck. And he said, "What you doing?" I said, "I'm playing football or practicing football." He said, "How much they paying you?" I said, "Nothing." He said, "Get in the truck." And that wrapped up my football career. Me, uniform, helmet, cleats, and all, got in the truck, and to the boatyard I went. And you did the same thing, surfing.
We were talking about it before we started this thing, and the story led to another story. And the next thing I know, when I started working, I worked for Mr. Beckett at the Pure Oil station, which was occasionally was my father's station a long time ago when he came back from the war. And I made about 48 cents an hour, and I worked 5 days a week. No, 6 days a week, and even on Saturdays. But my goal was to buy a surfboard. And my parents bought a 60 Dewey Weber, and they'd paid for it, but they never let me know it. So I was working at 48 cents an hour, and I started probably in June, and about middle of August, I was working 7 days a week, and everybody else was surfing. And come Sundays, I'd go to church, and in the afternoon, I'd play with a surfboard. But come about middle of August, I had that thing paid for. So I told Mr. Beckett, this is the last day I'm going to work. Well, Monday morning, I was out there surfing, and my mother came out there and just did like this. So, I had to go back to work. So it taught me a lesson. And that same kind of lesson, it's time to go back to work.
That's it. Yeah. But I don't know. That's basically all we knew back then was responsibility and working. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I've instilled, or hope I've instilled that into my kids and the people that I'm around. But people ask me all the time, when am I going to retire? And my answer is, I'm not.
Never stop telling the story.
No, you got to keep telling the stories. And that's why we do these series, right here.
When I get with you, the stories keep on going and going and going. That's the problem. We don't stop.
We don't stop. That's right. But anyway, one of the things that I was remembering the other day, and I know you remember it, it was the old Southern Bell building. It's where David's Restaurant is today on 8th Street. And right on the corner of Ash and 8th, that brick building. But that used to be our telephone place, right? And a lot of people don't realize it, but we had a switchboard in there and operators. And when you picked up the telephone at home to call somebody, they would plug you in and then plug you into the other telephone, and that's how you talked. And you remember party lines?
Well, everybody knew everybody's business.
Everybody knew everybody's business, and we all had party lines. And, of course, if you picked the phone up and your neighbor was talking, you just gently put it down and waited a little while and then picked it up again to see if, maybe they were through.
You had to be courteous.
Yeah, I was very courteous back then. Yeah, very courteous. But I don't know. It was growing up here was, how do you describe it? I don't know how to describe it.
I just felt safe all the time. People come here and they ask why we leave our doors open, and we feel comfortable. And it was just a peaceful life that we enjoyed each other. We trusted each other, and it was a wonderful place to grow up. You had You had islands to the south, which was Talbot. You had Tiger, and you had Cumberland, and you had the fort. So we had playgrounds that we could go anywhere. And
Yeah.
I don't think there was any kind of fear or danger with it.
No. And, you know, as teenagers, back when we were in high school growing up, I mean, we would circle downtown and then circle the beach and then go down 8th Street to the Freezette, and that was our route. I mean, you know, it was...
Your wife would run around on roller skates, right?
No, it was... people thought that. Dale actually was a curb hop at the Freezette, and I've got a photo of that we're going to pop up. But Dale was a curb hop, and in 1965 I came home from Germany, and I went and it was cold, it was December, and anyway we pulled up, and I was talking to, I think it was Ronnie Weaver. He was in the car, and she snatched the door open and said, "What do you want?" And when I looked at her, I thought, wow, you know, this is it.
It's all over.
Yeah, this is all over now. And so I immediately took him and another friend home, and I came back, and I think we ended up talking on the telephone once she got home most of the night. And then, you know, I went back to Germany, and anyway, that's where Dale and I met, was at the Freezette, you know, so fond memories for me.
Another interesting person was Leo Franks, and you just told me earlier that he was related to you somehow.
Yeah, Leo worked at the mill, but he was probably one of the best outboard mechanics that you could find anywhere. Right. And he
lived on a houseboat, didn't
he? His dad did, and his grandmother and grandfather did, Mr. and Miss Lovell.
That's right.
They lived on a houseboat. And as a kid, I used to go down and play on, you know, go visit them. And on high tide, you could fish from the back porch. And I just thought that was the neatest thing in the world, was to fish on the back porch of that houseboat. But Leo, his father was named Tommy Franks, and he had a brother named Robert. And Robert was my great-grandfather. And Robert helped build the post office in 1912. And Robert was bad to drink and get into trouble. And he moved to actually over to Tiger Island. And that's where he built a little shack over there. And
there's a well over there.
There's a well. I found the well, and I found some debris or old blocks that he had the house on. But then he moved to Point Peter over in St. Mary's on the shore of the river there. And anyway, it was cold one winter, and the little shack he lived in caught on fire, and he burned to death. But anyway, Tommy, Leo's dad, and my great-grandfather were brothers.
Leo spent a lot of time with me fishing and shrimping, and he knew the rivers, and I enjoyed the time that I spent with him. He was always... When he got older, he was always at the docks watching who caught the fish.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you remember Albert Lovell?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, Albert and Leo worked together. They had an outboard repair shop up on South 3rd Street, down from, we call it the old jail, but for some of you newcomers, it would be the museum today. 2 blocks south of that, they had an outboard shop, and it was amazing to me. They were not parts replacers. They were mechanics. They repaired things, you know, and anyway, it was...
you remember Leo carrying us seining? He always bringing people seining. I think Danny mentioned it last time.
He
talked to him.
He did.
But we would go to American Beach, and half American Beach would come out there, and we fit half of American Beach with mullet.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd ride along the beach at nighttime. Remember, they shine the light to see the mullet jump, and then that's where we'd set the net, you know, and bring it in. But you can't do that today.
Well, you can get a cast net, can't you?
I don't even know if you can do a cast net anymore, you know. I don't know. Pull over this way a little bit. Okay. I don't know if you can do a cast net or not anymore. So many new rules and regulations and everything, but I just remember so many things of growing up here, and I know you do too. And
one thing that comes to mind that I remember they had an A1A bridge toll.
Oh yeah.
And you threw the quarter in there.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not going to say who it was, but they used to stock the hole up and they'd throw the quarters in. And about an hour later, they'd go in and pick it up. And I'm not telling on anybody.
Yeah, no, we would never do that. And it wasn't us.
That's right.
It was not us. But we had there were some characters around. But that toll booth that he's talking about, and it was a quarter, was right where the new bridge is today on the south end of the island, and of course the old bridge is next door to it, and that's where people fish, is on that bridge. But that toll booth stayed there for, my gosh, as long as I can remember it was there. And I don't know how many quarters went through it, but there was
somebody got some extra ones.
Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of quarters went through that, and it was all on the honor system. I mean, I guess you could go through it and not put a quarter in, but most everybody stopped and put a quarter in. And
what about shark fishing on the beach? I used to have Lawrence Dunman used to shark fish with Jacksonville Shark Club.
Oh yeah, they had a club that would do the shark fishing, and you remember down on the docks downtown, they would shark fish,
I remember. Yeah.
Oh, they would take a rebarb, now a piece of steel rebarb, and bend it and actually make a hook. And that's how big these sharks were. And then, what was the guy's name? Len
Joyner.
Len Joyner. He caught a 600 and something pound jewfish, and today they call them Goliath groupers, down on the ice dock. And that was right next door to my dad's boat yard.
Deep pool there.
Oh yeah, there's about 70 feet of water right there. And but this fish, he fought that fish I don't know how long, and I think a shrimp boat helped him with the winch and everything, get the fish up and get it on the dock. In fact, I've got a photo of that I'm going to put up on this episode right now. But gosh, just so many memories, that we've got.
My ancestors down on that Cedar Point lived there in 1783 during the Spanish and British period, and I have a lot of history. It goes back in that at Cedar Point. Florida was Spanish, and then it became British, and my ancestors came from Burntport to Cumberland and then went to Cedar Point, and then they kind of fooled around with the Catholics, so they didn't get along with the Catholics, so they jumped back into the Georgia side. So. But I got a lot of history that I follow up on. It means a lot to me.
Yeah. I remember your Aunt Betsy.
Yeah, Prudential.
And Betsy, of course, I've been in the real estate business for about 41 years, but I remember when we didn't have a board of realtors. We were just unregulated, and of course, there was only like 3, maybe 4 real estate offices on, here. And you're liable to see 3 or 4 different signs in somebody's yard, and you just call the one that you knew, and you call the one that you liked. But Betsy, when we formed our first board of realtors, Betsy worked for them, and she used to come to offices, once a week with the updates, and you had a little book, and you would tear this one out and put this one in, and it was very rudimentary and elementary, but it worked. And of course, today everything's computerized, and
it was personal.
It was personable. That's it. You're right. It was personable. I mean, you look for Betsy, and you always got a hug and a kiss when she walked in the office, and she loved everybody, and we loved her, and that's the way it is. And I see all these things today, but here in the South, everybody's huggers, and I don't know. That's just what we do. We hug, and that's the way we were raised, and but any other You mentioned Piggly Wiggly. I got a challenge for you folks listening. Now, we know that there was a Piggly Wiggly. Now, Harry seems to think it's where Fred's used to be, right there on 8th Street. And for you new folks looking, that would be the building right behind the Hoyt House on 8th Street, and where Bygo was, and that closed. Now, I remember a Piggly Wiggly, but I don't remember exactly where it was. So if any of you guys, it's hard to say anybody that's older than us, because there's not many of you out there that are older than us, but if anybody remembers exactly where Piggly Wiggly was, or if you have a photograph, please send it to me and let us know, where it was. But I remember Winn-Dixie being in that building. Mm-hmm. And I remember me and Tommy Jameson and Butch Williams and Tommy Radigan and, oh my gosh, I don't know how many more. We carried a many bag of groceries out of that building. And then at nighttime, they'd lock us up and we'd put up stock all night long in that building. And,
Setzer's was another one. Mr. Bryant ran Setzer's.
Yeah. Right across the street. Yeah, it's the antique mall today, but it was right across the street, set on the corner of 6th, is it? Yeah, 6th and Center, right across the street from the Methodist Church. And that was Setzer's, and then it became Food Fair. And was it any grocery store after that? I think that was the only two. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. And
Mr. Bryant was the manager there, and I always knew him real well.
Yeah, Mr. Bryant. And oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember the other gentleman's name that worked there. He lived on 5th Street.
Do you remember when they used to have turtle races? The JCs would have turtle races at the beach. We'd be in trouble now, wouldn't we?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big trouble. I remember my grandmother used to make, a lot of you new folks are going to cringe at this, but my grandmother used to make a great pound cake, and she would make it with turtle eggs.
I know, we're getting in trouble now.
We're getting in deep trouble, but she would, and it took 9 eggs. I remember that. And she would say, she'd say, okay, boys, y'all are going on the beach today. I'm baking a cake. And we would find a turtle nest, and that's all we would take is 9 eggs. And we'd bring them back to her, and she'd make a pound cake using turtle eggs.
The JCs used to have a circle, and they would put the turtles, they got them from Mr. Suhu, and brought that old, I think they were really goat.
I don't know exactly what kind they were, but
the first turtle out of the had a number on it. The first turtle won.
Yeah, they won. And oh my gosh,
you go on Mississippi.
Pull this way a little.
I'm sorry.
It was something. There was so much. You remember when the JCs had the Billy Goat, and everybody had to keep it. All the members, they had to keep it for so long.
I miss that one.
Oh no, my uncle was in the JCs, and I remember he had to keep this Billy Goat, and because I had to go feed that Billy Goat and take care of it while he was keeping it. And they had a goat, and that's about all I remember about it. I must have been about 8 years old, 9 years old at that time. But they had all kind of things, that they did to entertain and do it.
It was simple life, simple pleasures.
The name of the filling station again on 8th Street that you worked at was?
It had, I don't even know the name they gave it, but I've got a picture of it, and I'll give it to you. It shows Yale. It's a Yale, Yale, and then it was 2 stations, and it had my grandfather from Callahan. There was Asa Arnold Jones was there with my father, and it was a picture. I'll give it to you, and you can show it. But there's some other.
Well, I want to put it up on this series, on this episode today. So send it to me.
But we love history, and I think history kind of tells a story, and it's great to tell the story together. We've always had a good time when we share together.
Yeah, our wives say we talk too much, and we've never understood that.
I understand that well.
Well, I mean, I know that they say that, but I don't think we talk too much. Do you?
If you have enough time.
If you have enough time. And well, we try to squeeze in everything we can with the time we got left. Harry, thank you so much for this today. anything we can do to bring back a memory and share it with, our old friends that we grew up with. And like I said before, it sparks a memory. That's wonderful. And for all you newcomers, it gives you a little view into what it used to be like here. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Nick.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick. You've done a great job of bringing back some history to us, and we enjoy sharing it.
Yep.
God bless.
Thank you. Folks, if you got any ideas or you've got anybody that you think would be great to interview for this series, please, you can private message me, you can call me, you can text me. My number 753-4077 if you want to call me, and we'll get them out there on one of the episodes. So until next time, thank you, and God bless.